about my work, how it's evolved. There's been a number of points where I started doing something different and new that have turned into new phases of my work. I call them breakthroughs. My major breakthrough was the Frosted Flakes box. Before that, I had never used a piece of printed cardboard consumer packaging in my work. I had picked up this Frosted Flakes box at my Aunt Jean's house, brought it back to my office. I actually didn't make the art right away. I put it on my floor. I guess I like Tony the Tiger, and I realized the Frosted Flakes box is a classic thing. I had been deconstructing photographs of people, mostly my family prior to that, but deconstructing a product, cutting it up into pieces and reworking the pieces to almost make it into an abstraction of what it was. This was a breakthrough. And then right after that, I had a calendar that was black and white photographs of famous New York artists. And the paper was a little thicker, and the photographs were really good headshots. 2 days after I made the Frosted Flakes box, I started making collage portraits of those people. And now this was another breakthrough because these weren't people that I knew. These were famous people. I guess it was the same idea of just taking one image, cutting it apart, deconstructing it, and then mixing up the pieces and putting it back together in my own way. And then I had this idea, I want to do every product in this way. I want to deconstruct every product. The cereal boxes, after a while, I started calling Cerealism. I thought to myself, well, if I'm the Cerealism artist, I should do my version of The Last Supper and call it The Last Breakfast. And I decided to make my surreal character as the central figure, and then I thought I'll pick 12 characters to represent the 12 apostles. Snap, Crackle, and Pop, the Quaker Oats guy, the Honey Nut Busby from Honey Nut Cheerios, the Trix Rabbit, Toucan Sam, Captain Crunch, and that was kind of fun. What I did start doing was putting in the background some messages of things that I thought he might have imparted to his apostles, knowing that this was the Last Supper. Be a good person, do the right thing, love thy neighbor, help each other, try your best. Death is not the end. I just love that idea of this sugary, happy consumer brand imagery expressing messages like that. The next one that I did was a 32 by 40 inch board, the Sermon on the Mount. Again, it's chock full of the golden rules of living. So I love that idea, but it also gave me an opportunity to represent the multitudes. So instead of just having to pick 12 characters and limiting them to cereal, I used that as an opportunity to collect hundreds of characters. The idea of depicting a scene like The Last Breakfast was such a breakthrough because really going forward, depicting any scene, whether it's biblical or historical, American history, world history, it's the same idea. It's using these materials to depict some sort of scenario. Then I started doing American history. I did the signing of the Declaration of Independence. I did a collage interpretation of the Woodstock Festival. And I've done the nativity scene. I did one fairly recently called The Orthodox Wedding. For me, I very often start doing something new. One example I would say are my clocks. At one of my workshops, I remembered there was a mother and the daughter was 4 or 5 years old, and the mother was working on her collage, and the little girl was just kind of sitting there with her cardboard, the base that you're supposed to be making the collage on, but the mother was a little too focused on her own work, and the little girl was just kind of cutting the cardboard. And when they left, the little girl left the cardboard and it was kind of rounded and it had like a little indentation in it. And I just thought, this is so unique. You know, this little 4-year-old made this. When I saw the shape for the clock, I took a 12, 1, 2, 3, and made it into a clock. And then I filled in the space around it. I put a few arrows that I found on things in the middle and just filled it with little images. And so that was a breakthrough. That whole idea of making a clock that's not a clock. But the breakthrough came by seeing this little shape that this little girl had made. You know, that's true art. The idea of putting messages, you know, cutting out letters from different fonts and spelling out different messages, you know, being able to read something in the artwork was a breakthrough. I had started doing that in some of my product packages, mostly the cereal boxes, because the cereal boxes are a little larger. I started putting some other little messages in some of the collages, especially when I was doing multiple versions of the same box. Sometimes I would cut the box up just randomly. Sometimes I would keep the character in the place that it was. Sometimes I would cut it into square pieces. I started doing something called the boardwalk effect, where I'd cut the box into a strip and then cut the strip into slivers, like little rectangular slivers, until I had a pile of these slivers. And then I'd lay them down, almost like imagining somebody laying out a wood floor. And it kind of makes the image look like it's melting almost sometimes. It just has a cool effect.